Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a new real-life car review. I just got back from vacation. I spent 2 weeks on a round trip in Scandinavia and I racked up about 5,000 kilometers in this here Lexus NX450h Plus with my family. So I got a pretty good impression of the good and the bad of this car. Let's start off this real-life car review with a peek at the drivetrains. Well folks, what car do you think wins the award for the number of hood latches? It'll be no surprise that it is this car with 1, 2, 3 hood latches. Never seen that on any car that I previously tested. So gone are the 6 cylinders for the Lexus NX. The 2.5 liter 4-cylinder hybrid is the only engine option. Bore and stroke 87.5 by 103.4 millimeters, so it's a typically under square engine. Runs in Atkinson cycle, meaning that the intake valve stays open during the compression stroke. It means that the piston pushes out a little bit of air, but when the valve closes halfway the compression stroke, the engine builds up enough compression to get a good combustion, and it really prevents a lot of pumping losses, and that makes the Atkinson cycle so incredibly efficient. This is the plug-in version. The main electric motor in the front is started up, and it has an additional engine motor on the rear axle. Then there's the all-wheel drive, so it's an all-wheel drive system. There is no mechanical connection between the front and the back. 309 horsepower and slightly less torque, 227 Newton meters, which don't seem a lot, but I don't know how Lexus calculates it. These are the numbers of the brochure. When I have a peek underneath the hood, you can see there are a lot of lines, and when I look under the hood of my first gen Lexus LS400, engine under bonnet design is beautiful, and this is a mess. I think Lexus really should look into the under bonnet design of the cars, and I mentioned this in the test of the Subaru Solterra, which is the sister model to the Toyota BZ4X. I'll link it up here. The under bonnet design, yeah, it really needs attention. This is a big line hose cably mess. For 92,000 euros that this car cost, they really should have done a better job, in my opinion. So it's a bit of a letdown. I'm a big fan of the brand, but I'm not afraid to be somewhat of a critic of the brand, and this is just a mess. You get 10 years of warranty, so in terms of reliability and cost, it really is a no-worry area, but when you peek under the hood, you have to do that every now and then, check the oil. Could have been a much nicer view. But anyway, let's close up the hood and have a peek in the interior. The nice thing of a Lexus is how the way the seat and the steering wheel retract, so you can get easier in and out. It's very nice. Let's put the car on. It's fully charged, so the engine won't start. The interior is well built, beautiful materials. The only thing is, this is the F-Sport version, and for some reason or another, car manufacturers always seem to think that when you have a sporty car, the interior shouldn't be black on black. It's black all over the place. Last year I drove the executive line of the NX, which had a dark rose leather, and that was beautiful, and this is just black. It looks kind of generic, but when you start using this interior, you can tell it's really well built with really nice materials. It's all digital nowadays. I have a screen in front of me, a large screen over here, which has the native Lexus/Toyota infotainment system. It works really well, but I only wish Lexus somewhat thought it up to give it a bit more separation between the Toyota sister models and this Lexus car. It's all the same, it works fast. Only thing I noticed when I use the navigation function, when you start entering your destination, the car wants to compile a list of possible outcomes, and while it's processing that, it misses a keystroke every now and then. For instance, if I would punch in New York like I normally would on a tablet, it misses some letters and you end up with NEYRK. Lexus really should look into that. The controls for the HVAC, the climate control, there are 2 rotary knobs for the temperature, but the rest of it is all on screen. And there's this small panel that's always visible in the lower part of the screen for the controls, and there's a sort of pop-up which activates the climate conscious. This car monitors the passengers and the body temperature of the passengers, and adjust the climate control to that. Today it's fairly warm, the car is sitting in the sun. When I opened the door and started it, it immediately started the ventilated seat, so that's really nice. The big negative of this interior and all the technology, that's when the point when much technology becomes too much technology, are these buttons over here. These are the unmarked buttons. These are for the infotainment, radio controls, and the phone and voice control. And over here are the buttons for the cruise control. There are two big problems. The first is these buttons have a secondary function, so you can shift to a secondary function which are free to program. The secondary function of this cluster is the trip computer, but it's not available when you use the cruise control. And the biggest flaw of it is you have to put your thumb or your finger on one of these buttons, then it shows a pop-up in the screen or the head-up display displaying the function of that specific position of the button, and only when the pop-up is visible in the screen you can activate the button. So when you're on cruise control for a couple of minutes, you want to cancel it, you first have to touch or push the button, then it shows a function, and with a second push you can deactivate it. And this frustrated the heck out of me during 1,000 kilometers on the Autobahn, because every time I had to push it twice, and every now and then it would miss a push. So I thought the cruise control would resume, the car would start to accelerate. I let my foot off the accelerator pedal and the car slowed down because it didn't catch one of those two pushes. Lexus really should look into that, because this is a major flaw of this car. I cannot get used to this. In that respect, I really miss the small lever that the older Lexuses and Toyotas had for the cruise control. That worked really well. Looking at the storage space, here is the wireless phone charger, and underneath it's a small drawer, is an extra compartment, two nice big cup holders, and the great center console with a large storage compartment which opens two ways towards the driver or the passenger, which is just great. Overall, this interior is a real great place to be. The audio system is good, but when you have the money for the optional Mark Levinson audio system, be sure to get it. It's hands down, by far, by miles ahead, one of the best audio systems you can get in the automotive world. Well, let's have a peek in the back. As you may expect of a larger SUV, the seat and passenger space in the back is just great. I heard the kids complain a lot, but their main complaint was that the seat back was leaning too much to the back. When they wanted to look outside, they had to come forward every time. Now, given why we have a small and a tall junior, and the taller junior being taller than I am, she complained a lot about the space in the car and the seat back being leaned too much towards the back. Shows, yeah, it's when you want to rest, want to sleep, this is a great seating position, but when you want to look to the outside, it would be nice to have an adjustable seat back. But the depth of the seat itself and the angle of the seat, I think, is great. I spent some hours in the back of this car while my wife drove, and I think it's one of the better rear passenger compartments. We have an outlet here, we have fans, there is a heated function with 3 position, of course an armrest with 2 cup holders, 2 USB-C outlets and 1 12-volt outlets for a cooling box or anything. Yes, and there are lights. The only thing is, yeah, it's very black in this interior, and I think the visibility towards the outside is just great. One thing I didn't show you, which I'm going to do now. Let me get the camera. The Lexus NX has this e-latch system, so you open the door by pushing this button, and I think it's very naturally. At first it seems very gimmicky, but you get used to it very fast. You push it with a button and then you open the door. Only thing is, this system can be set to unlock the doors only when the driver door is opened, and I change it when the car is in park in P. That unlocks all the doors. First you have to push this unlock button and then push this before you can open the door. And for emergencies you can just pull it twice or once to open the doors. Seems a bit gimmicky, but you really get used to it very fast. Now, of course, we take a peek in the trunk, as we always do on this channel. I got my charging cable over here. The cargo space, cargo area is large enough for a family of 4 on a 2-week holiday, I can tell. I don't know the specifics and the numbers of it, but I'll blink it in screen over here. And then underneath here there is a secondary floor, but that's where I have my wall outlet charger stored, and the 12-volt battery lives under here. And there isn't much room underneath this trunk floor, but all in all this is large enough. Okay, setting off in the Lexus NX450h Plus, the plug-in version. Why would you opt for the plug-in version? Well, this has an electric range and EV range of 70 kilometers. This is what I get with my driving style. And in my case, that would be enough to do, say, 75% of my drives purely electric. Currently it's in hybrid mode because state of charge is 25%. It just dropped down a bar. And the fun thing is, when we were driving across Germany and Denmark and Sweden, after 70 kilometers of course, the battery was depleted and we went in hybrid mode, and you still get very great fuel economy with this car. On our ride back home on the German Autobahn, I had a cruise control set to 150 kilometers an hour, 160 kilometers an hour, which is 100 miles per hour. And got a fuel consumption on average of 7 liters per 100 kilometers. That's great. In Denmark and Sweden, where the average speed on highways is 110 kilometers an hour, it was around the 5.8 to 6 liters per 100 kilometer mark, so that's really great. So it's often said when you run a plug-in hybrid with the hybrid battery depleted, it starts to consume lots of fuel, but Lexus and Toyota really know the thing about hybrids. They've been building them for almost 30 years, or just over 30 years. And the fuel economy still is great. This car is a little bit heavier than the 350h version, but still, when you run with an empty battery, fuel economy is great. And when I charge the car regularly, like I've been doing the last few days, I get the exact same fuel consumption as with our Generation 2 Toyota Prius, which is 5 liters per 100 kilometers on average. Of course, I've driven a lot of hybrids in the recent real-life car reviews. And one thing where Toyota and Lexus hybrids really stand out is how seamless the electric motors and the petrol engine work together and hand off. This morning I was driving on a highway, I had to make a pickup, and I was watching the state of charge indicator. I was expecting the gasoline engine to start anytime soon, and I wanted to see if I could notice when the engine started. And when I looked at it, the car was already in hybrid mode, the gasoline engine was running. You don't feel or hear anything of the handoff from EV to gasoline. How this works together is just seamless, and Lexus and Toyota really perfected the hybrid drivetrain. It's really the best in the business. This car has all-wheel drive, 309 horsepower, so it's pretty fast. I'm currently running in normal drive mode. When I switch to sport, yeah, there's really a punch. It's a bit too much for my liking. Like I said, the buttons on the steering wheel don't work that well. I really hope they do improve that. Another thing I don't really like is the way the advanced driver aids and the safety systems work together. It looks like that the drivability engineers were on holiday and the legal department took over, and there is a very thin line between what the car thinks is safe and when you're stepping out of line. It issues a lot of warning, it starts steering and all. It's very strict, and it really stands in the way of my driving pleasure. I was driving on the highway and started approaching a slower car in front of me. The adaptive cruise control picks up on that. It slows down, but it's too fast with starting to brake. I could really tell that the brake lights light up. By the way, the cars behind me were responding. What the car should have done, in my opinion, is back off the throttle, lower the speed, and it also could have started braking. It's a bit too strict, and I think Hyundai and especially Nissan with the ProPilot system is much better for that. And this is a car of almost double the price, and I really wish that Lexus would look into the calibration of the advanced driver systems. Also, the lane departure warning is also active at every start, but you can push this shortcut button and deactivate it, cancel it, and now it's gone. When I start using the adaptive cruise control, it automatically reactivates the lane departure warning and the lane keep assist, which is good, which is what you want on a highway. On roads like this with these lane markers, I don't often use the cruise control, but anyway, it could use some fine-tuning. Like I mentioned, I spent almost 5,000 kilometers in this car in just under 2 weeks, so we did a lot of driving. I must say, you can tell the difference between the regular version and its F-Sport version. The F-Sport version does not only get different looks, the suspension setup is different. It has active dampers, which you can clearly tell change when you change the drive mode. When I put it into Sport, they really stiffen up. In normal mode they're just comfortable enough, but a bit sportier than the regular version is. And also the steering rack for the all-wheel drive version or the plug-in hybrid version, I must say, is a bit slower. I found that in the 350h, the regular version, the steering was a bit too fast for this car, and in this plug-in version it's slightly slower. I'll blink in the ratios over here. This suits the car better, but you can tell when you change the drive mode, the electric power steering also changes. For highway driving it's great. I think people choose this car as a long distance driver, a highway cruiser. If you do that a lot, I think I would prefer the regular version over the F-Sport. But when I was in Sweden, there were a lot of nice, beautiful back roads, and you can drive and drive for days without meeting oncoming traffic, especially on the gravel back roads. And I was surprised by how much fun this car is on those back roads. Maximum speed is often 70 kilometers an hour, which is fast enough for those kinds of roads. But I must say, I had so much fun driving this car on those types of roads. I was doing 70 kilometers an hour, the allowed speed, and your steering and how this car handles. And that's where the Lexus signature driving experience comes in, and where you notice that the most is in the steering. The car is always very composed, and that's the key word for the Lexus driving signature, or however they call it. It was on those back roads, you were going a bit too fast, there was some loose gravel on the road, but you steer in, the car feels confident, it feels composed. You don't have to make any changes, you just set the desired course with the steering wheel and the cars follow suit. If you have seen other reviews of the all-wheel drive version of the latest generation NX, you often see the same critique that the front and rear axles seem to have a sort of disconnect. And that's not the case for this car, and I'm not sure if it comes down to the F-Sport version, if it has a different calibration. I will ask, and I'll blink the answer in here. But I was on one of those gravel roads carrying a bit too much speed into a corner. There was loose gravel, and immediately the rear axle started kicking in. It did a braking on the inside wheel, sending some extra torque to the outside wheel. And that's how this car torque factors, by braking the inside wheel, sending the power to the outside wheel. Car immediately corrected. The rear axle was very fast to respond, and I really like how this car behaves. Now please note, this is no sports car, it does not try to be, but I'm genuinely surprised by how well this car drives, especially given its size and its weight on these kinds of back roads. I would expect the NX to be an ideal highway cruiser for long trips, and it actually is, but on these back roads and on gravel roads or less than ideal pavement, really offers a kind of driving experience and driving fun you would expect from an F-Sport version. So that's really good. If I was to do a lot of highway driving with the family, doing the trips I've done, for that I would prefer the regular version, but when you get to your holiday destination, you're going to have nice mountain roads or nice back roads. The F-Sport really adds, it's really worth its money. So I think I've touched upon all my talking points for the drive segment, and now let's head over to the middle of nowhere, where I'll give my final thoughts about this car. So, what are my final thoughts on the Lexus NX450h? In all honesty, I've never done this much kilometers and this much time in a test car, and I'm very grateful to the Lexus PR reps in the Netherlands for giving me the opportunity to go on a road trip with this car. Like I said, there are some annoyances, the buttons on the steering wheel and the electronic nannies, and it's kind of the same when you spend a lot of time, maybe a bit too much time in a car. It's like spending a lot of time with your family when you live close together. Those small annoyances can become large annoyances, and I think it's kind of the same with this car. Now, I've been driving at home for the last couple of days, and really the things that bugged me on driving on the highway, I don't have it here. And I must say, when you're driving on the highway, it's a great cruiser. Suspension is great, steering is great, it's quite a lot of creature comforts, which you may expect from a Lexus, and there's a lot of room, a lot of storage room. It's just a great cruiser. When you get to the back roads, against my expectations, it's a great car. I thought about the GR Yaris when I was driving on the back roads, but I think I had as much fun with the Lexus NX as I would have with the GR Yaris. This is a much more practical car, of course. Now, fuel economy. When I did fast driving on the German Autobahn with 100 miles per hour, 160 kilometers an hour, I got an average fuel consumption of 7.5 liters per 100 kilometers. When I charge the car regularly and I drive on the back roads over here, every now and then a stretch of highway, I get 5 liters per 100 kilometers. So that's really great fuel economy. And when you don't charge this car, you forget about charging, don't have the possibility, you still get great fuel economy, somewhere between 5 and 6 liters per 100 kilometers, so that's really great. Is the PHEV or the 450h version worth its money? I think so. Is the F-Sport worth its money? Yes, absolutely, but you must keep in mind when you opt for the F-Sport, you sacrifice a little bit of highway comfort for a lot of driving fun on back roads and gravel roads, like I said. So yeah, I could live with this car, but yeah, for me, I have to return it tomorrow and then it's on to the next test car. I hope you liked following me along, and if you did, and if you want to help support the channel, you can do so by buying me a coffee. I'll leave the link down below in the description. For now, I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye!